Hello, everyone. Today I am going to be talking about the new surprise mixtape slash album playlist, kind of last minute put together project from the Swedish electronic indie alternative artist Jonna Lee, who has previously gone under the moniker iamamiwhoami, and who has collaborated with producer Barbelle, whose real name is Claes Björklund, and who is through those iterations of her career decided to create an album made in quarantine due to the pandemic that we've been going through in the last several months, and decided to revisit earlier old compositions that had not gotten fully fleshed out or fully formed or released, as well as explore, I think, some other new original ideas that she'd had recently that she'd been working on, and put out a new 12-song project that none of us saw coming that, with the pandemic, she decided to use as a perfect opportunity for. This project is called Chronology, spelled with a K, and it really kind of does go from the very beginning of the I Am Am I project to more recent times. I think that, some of the more recent songs are towards the end, the more older songs are towards the beginning, even though I'm not sure how literally chronological it all fully is in the playlist, but we've got what was going to be 10 songs turned into 12. She released one every single Friday starting in middle of April. And this past Friday, June 26th, we got the final song along with the album cover. She has been doing these gorgeous watercolor paintings of nature to go for each song. Every song has a watercolor painting. I was so blown away by seeing Jonna's talent as a watercolorist. As a watercolor painter myself, I can attest to the fact that watercolor is one of the most difficult media to use for painting. And honestly, I'm shook because I was like, she's a way better watercolorist than I am. And I went to art school and I pride myself on being an artist and a painter. And I had no idea that she had such visual art skills. And so I am absolutely blown away by these 12 gorgeous paintings. I actually really do like the one that she chose to use as the cover. I really like the composition of it. It's understated, simplistic, it's evoking emotion. I like the colors of dark blues and cool tones in it. But all of the paintings are great snapshots of the Swedish landscape and of that sort of moody atmosphere, the solitude of nature, the feeling of that Nordic wilderness, captured so beautifully by the layers of ink washing that, watercolor, like no other media, can really kind of create with the way you're supposed to use it properly. And I don't always use it that properly because I tend to paint with it like you paint with oils, and I tend to cake on layering too much and paint with not enough water. So it's really neat to see her use that hidden talent of hers to such profound effect on this project. And so I would love to own some of those as prints. I would love to. Maybe I will get my hands on one or two of them at some point. Jonna Lee is an artist who actually has been pretty busy for the last few years. It's kind of crazy, but she's been releasing an album now every year for the last 3 years. In 2018, we got Everyone Afraid to Be Forgotten, which was, of course, her big, bombastic first record under her new stylized name, Jonna Lee, with an I instead of a J. And then we got Remember the Future last May, only a little over a year ago, as a sort of follow-up project that was a little bit less polished in parts, but very much its own standalone body of work that was different from Everyone Afraid to Be Forgotten. It was sort of the muted, more soft, atmospheric sister album to that one. And that album was created because of a pledge goal that she had created on Pledge Music, and she had raised enough money by people crowdfunding for her shows during the Everyone Afraid to Be Forgotten era that she reached that milestone, and she was able to put together a new album only a year later. And some of the songs on that record were also sort of older songs. So in a way, that was like a precursor to this new record called Chronology. And so we even get an iteration of one of the songs on that record on this new project with Open Sea, now called Mouth's Open Sea. And so now, only a little over a year after that, we get Chronology. And of course, this was not planned at all, but that's sort of how Jonna's career is kind of going these days. And because Remember the Future wasn't planned too far in advance. And now because of this pandemic, she, like I said, decided to put this out. I will say that this definitely does feel like a lot more like a demo reel. This album does not have quite the level of polish to it that her former records did have. There is so much minimalism to the beats and the production, and some of it definitely feels a little unfleshed out. Like there's not a lot uh, sonically going on. Maybe the melodies feel a little bit clumsy in parts. Jonna has always embraced a avant-garde and an abstract style of music, but in her, mid-career, she sort of started embracing bigger pop melodies, more recognizable choruses, and she found a really good way of blending the experimental with the familiar and the triumphant when it comes to pop. And that was a really big win-win for me. And I think that was displayed brilliantly on her latest record, her big album, Everyone Afraid, to Be Forgotten, with Remember the Future skewing a little bit more in the alternative experimental. And then on this record, it feels like prototypes for lots of different ideas. A lot of those songs fully were fleshed out as big moments, like Shadow Show, or You, or Long semicolon John. Some of them have very unique titles. And so it doesn't bother me that we're getting a very sort of understated, not fully formed, sort of rough draft version of a lot of these songs. But for the songs that, as far as I have not, as far as me, have not heard their actual possible finished form, they do feel like they're leaving a lot to be desired for me. And so there's only a couple what I would assume to be like newer tracks, even if they're older compositions that we haven't heard in an iteration of a previous record, that I feel rise to the occasion and are actually songs I'm going to want to repeatedly listen to. But I was not expecting this album to necessarily go that hard. So none of this surprises me. This was definitely a little bit more of, like I said, a last minute compilation of ideas and sketches and just giving it to us, in a way that feels very authentic, feels very real and raw. And I think that some of the sparse minimalism on this record is quite welcomed. I just think that there are a lot of areas that I do wish were a little more fleshed out. And I think that some of the, choruses and the melodies, like always with some of Jonna's music, it's not always my cup of tea. There are some songs I'm not so crazy about, but it's really in the minority. I really do find myself in the last 2 years, I've been just falling more in love with her music. So let's dive through this track list. First, I want to talk about Shadow Show. This new version we get is extremely stripped back, more acoustic. It's really just her at the keyboard, sort of like an organ. A lot of the recordings on this record are live takes, so you can definitely hear that in the recording. They're very rough and ready. And Shadow Show, this version, we've seen her perform a more acoustic stripped back version of this song way back in 2011 when she did her Bounty live performance, which was this sort of like one-off live show she did in the forest, and it was filmed, and it was very much an experimental art piece, and it was brilliant. And the piece ended with a rendition of her performing that song on an old piano. Shadow Show was one of the first songs that her and Claes wrote as the I Am, Am I, Who Am I project. And so it's sort of like that singular thematic song for that group and for the idea and concept of the character she was invoking, or the story and mythos of the music. And the song finally got a fully fleshed out, produced form, very electro dance, in 2014's album Blue, with the song Shadow Show, the closing track. This definitely feels like early, 2010, like 2010, 2009, Am I, for back at the microphone, very distorted, muted vocals, a very sort of understated recording, but it does the song such justice. There's something so witchy about this song that gives it added spookiness to, added weight as well, I think. And it performed in such a sparse manner. I think that it has elements of a lullaby, it has elements of sort of a lament, and it just definitely leaves a haunting impact on the listener, especially if you've followed her career, you sort of know the story behind that song. I've talked more in depth about this song on my Blue review, so I will link my reviews to all of her albums that I have done in the description in case anyone is interested in further exploration of that. But the songs we've already gotten, I'm not really going to lyrically dive too much into, just in the interest of brevity. But I love this version of Shadow Show. I think I love the other one as well. I think they're both night and day, and they both equally are great. And one is suiting for a more sort of mellow, introspective mood, and the other is when you're feeling a little bit more brazen and fired up. And they both channel a kind of powerful pagan energy that I am really behind. I will say I did just watch a movie called Gretel and Hansel, and it's a 2020 movie based off of that iconic Grimm fairy tale, and it's a really eerie, beautiful rendition of that story. It's more for the visuals than it is for the actual story, though some of the performances are great. And listening to iamami and Jonna's music, it definitely evokes parallels to that sort of vaguely occult, witchy, pagan, figure in living in the forest aesthetic. And so I can't help but just conjure up images from that film and the sort of emotional aspects they come together with her music. And I do appreciate that it's not all, flowers and roses. There's like really gritty kind of darker subtext to a lot of the, story arcs and to the sort of earthy, gritty, primal magic that is alluded to on a lot of these tracks. So You was a song off of Bounty way back in 2010. The song we get on this version is basically U1 and U2 combined together. We get elements of U1. I love U1. It's so surreal and trippy. Her distorted vocal takes are they're really haunting to listen to, and I like that they're sprinkled throughout this more remixed version that we get with U2, which was one of the most, I think, industrial electronic, and I mean that in a way in that it was probably one of the most propulsive dance songs we ever got from her. It was just unapologetically extremely rhythmic with such pounding layers of bass, and I think that it had this undeniable catchiness to it. You Can't Be the Night, repeated like a mantra over top. It works so well, and I love this version of You, as of course I love the original separated form. So these two opening tracks I was just 100% down for. After I heard this song, I realized we were going to be getting at least 10 more songs, or 8 more songs, turned out to be 10. So I decided not to listen to any of the other tracks as they were being released week by week. That's why I haven't talked about this album on this channel. I wanted to wait until the full project had been released. So a lot of those songs, now every song I've listened to, I've only just heard recently, like a few days ago. So bear with me. I haven't had as much time with them. I've tried to give them as many listens as I could before filming this video, but a lot of the time this is an initial review. So, my thoughts might flesh out, and opinions might change going forward. But I just wanted to say that. I haven't had as much time with these songs as a lot of devout listeners have had, especially with the earlier ones. Track number 3, Down by the Lake. This is my favorite new song that we got off this project. This is the one that gets me the most excited, and it feels like the most fully fleshed out, and one that could have easily been on Everyone Afraid to Be Forgotten. I could have also seen it being on Blue as well. There's a bit of a parallel to Hunting for Pearls, just with the melody construction. Also, the imagery of being by a body of water. Hunting for Pearls has a lot of that with the visuals, and what she sings about with this song, Down by the Lake, definitely evokes the same kind of storyline. Sinking into the depths of the water. Down by the lake, down by the cold lake, you shot me down and left me there. I bled through sand till red colored the water. Murder, this is treason, they're crying out. The lake, now blood red, quiet lake. I took a dive with my heart in my hand and I sank to the bottom. Hit the sand, the reeds they sang, I heard them sing. Very, very dark, very tragic. This idea of, having to be, dragged down to the pits because of some tragedy you've gone through, or heartbreak, or depression. And this can be a cathartic time for you to cast away those darker parts of yourself, let them sink into that lake. Sometimes you have to hit the bottom to be able to keep your head above water further, to learn how to do that. So I really love the drama of this song. I love the the rhythm of it, the pacing. This song just really feels like it's found its own footing, and it has some gorgeous melody harmonizations. I love the cooing higher soprano vocal coming in that I always love when she utilizes. I wish she utilized it more, but she really knows how to vocalize in that, very haunting, wispy voice as it sort of cascades around you. Definitely my favorite song on this playlist. Track number 4 is called Telus Bar. So this was a song that everyone had known about if you were a fan of Jonna from the beginning, but I didn't know about. I'd never heard this track. This was originally played in a promotion for a festival that iamamiwhoami did way back when. I think this was like early 2000s. The song was also called John B. So it was sort of like a side B to the song John. It's a very sensual, smooth song. We've got this ringtone that's trying to pick up, and it's a very phone sex kind of alluding track. There's a song called Miscommunications by Imogen Heap that I see a lot of sonic similarities to, as well as, of course, lyrical similarities. And I think it's one of the more sensual songs, more explicitly sensual songs that Jonna has, or IAM has written. And so I guess Clump would be the other one. I can tell that this comes from that same body of work of songs, because in 2011 she released John and Clump, and those songs definitely had a seedier, sort of explicit, sensual undertone. And I can see how this song fits in with those songs from that era. But, it's definitely a little bit more demo quality and doesn't really stand out to me melodically or sonically. So it's not really a song that I find myself really listening to much in repeatedly. But I appreciate it for, the experimentation of it. And I do like the kind of concept around the phone as a metaphor. Number 5 is Long Semicola John. I have no idea what this title is alluding to. If anyone in the comments knows more about where the song title John even came from, and then if where long with the semicolon into John, if that has any special meaning that we're supposed to know about, because again, I've only known Jonna and IAM for the last 2 years. I haven't followed her since before then. I've tried to catch up with all of her work, but I don't know everything. So basically, this is a more stripped back kind of baseline version of the song John, which was a lot more electro-industrial in its finished version in 2011. And, this is one of those ones where I actually think that that song in its finished form felt almost too produced. And the version we get now, it really lets the melody and the rhythm of it shine more. So actually, I think I kind of prefer this version if I had to choose. I love the lyrics. Used to be clean, now I'm filthy as can be, scrubbing off every spot. I really feel those lyrics a lot more strongly, and I feel they come across a lot more tongue-in-cheek and more center stage on this version than they did on the more heavily produced version. So it does have that very explicit lyric of "brace me up, I'm your slut." So I was very surprised in reading the lyrics originally for this song that she went so explicit. But that is the undertone of a song like this. And I think looking at the lyrics, it's very clear to sort of see the picture that she's painting. It's quite a feminist song, I would say. Mouth's Open Sea. So once again, a demo version, I think a real live take version of Open Sea, which this, of course, was a song that we knew was composed for a while, that finally got a form in Remember the Future as the opening single. And originally in 2010, she had recorded a solo album that was going to be called Mouth of a River, that she was going to release originally around that time, but decided not to, because she was working on I Who Am I? And she calls that sort of a precursor to her Blue album. And that's where this original take and the song came from. I'm not madly in love with this version, but it's definitely, I can't tell which version I prefer, because I think they both bring something interesting sonically to the table. I really love them both. Track number 7, Violent Playground. So this is a cover song. An artist named Nitzer Ebb originally wrote this track. Apparently, in 2010, Jonna Lee was recorded a version of this song for an album called Razzia Volume 2. There's a Razzia going on. It was probably only released in Sweden. That's all I can say. I have no idea what that's about. But what I will say about this one, first of all, I didn't know this was a cover when I first heard it. So learning that it's a cover makes me think a little differently about it. It's definitely got a very robotic beat to it. And there's some interesting tinny kind of percussion that comes in parts. It's a sparse song for sure. The use of to the left at the refrain definitely made me immediately think of Beyonce, which I assume is not a reference there, but it's sort of like when you have a song with that sort of lyric. I can only assume this song was written before Irreplaceable. I don't know. I would hope so, because it's too much of a allusion to that it's hard. I don't know. It's hard not to think of that. But anyway, we are the boys. We are the big boys. We're so strong. We're so pure. We know who we are. Now we're going out to play. It's no fun at home. No one can stop us. We play for real. We play for power. Won't you come and join us in our playground? It's a violent playground. Such a violent playground. I mean, I feel these lyrics so strongly. If you can't beat them, join them. But, it's a cautionary tale about, growing up in the big bad world, which, speaking of, brings me back to Gretel and Hansel. I definitely see some thematic parallels there, because it definitely kind of alludes to, being so young and pure and innocent, and realizing that, the world that you're entering into isn't so pure and so innocent. And so it's very easy to get corrupted, by it. Samaritan. This is, of course, an earlier or reworked version of the lead single from Everyone Afraid to Be Forgotten, titled Samaritan. I'm not so keen on this version. I think that it's really hard with the Everyone Afraid to Be Forgotten versions are just so perfect as they are, and I am so in love with the bombastic production around them that when you take a version of like that and strip it back and maybe give it a little bit more of a live feel, it just feels so much like a demo that it's hard for me to want to listen to this version and not want to listen to the final full-fledged product. Unless I was legit listening to it live, because then it would be different. But hearing it recorded like this, it just leaves too much to be desired for me. So I definitely love the song, don't really love this version, but I can't fault it for that. That's what it's meant to be. The next song, The Deadlock. So in 2015, Jonna Lee, I am at the time, who am I? It's so hard to say that. It's such a tongue twister in a way. She did her concert in blue. And so some of this song, which I guess had been written long ago, was used during that performance. And some of the lyrics of this song were reworked into the closing song off of Everyone Afraid to Be Forgotten, titled Fold. This is a very, very minimal song, not a very clear melody, lots of micro beats coming in and out, which does make it, I think, an interesting headphone listen. And we've got some very interesting muted soft vocals coming out for the outro. Definitely love when she does these very sort of processed muted vocals. I think she creates such a haunting choral effect. We spend life inside of our heads, coupled together wires of red. We built a fort so strong to hold for times of harsh and winters of cold. We spent all our beauty we made, memories by hand to replay. Hear these simple words unfold. For this occasion I chose. You and me, we spent our days trapped inside our thickening haze, slowly running out of ways to reinvent our shrinking maze. Love that lyric. Oh, once I was shiny and new, unsteady look, a silent gloom. Who knew what I would turn into? Who knows my world? Who shares my view? I see this as being about a relationship, about two people trying so hard to make something work when they keep butting heads about so many different things, to the point where they're fraying the wire at both ends, literally. And so this person is calling out to escape that endless cycle they find themselves in. Who really knows my view? Who shares it? Who can I find co-resonance with that won't cause a deadlock for winter's cold? Who can I really winter and, be enriched by and not drained by? So I think Paramount is definitely a newer song. I'm seeing that this was released exclusively through her online store or page Generate in September of 2019. I'm sure it had been written earlier, but just never released anytime prior. Probably the most demo sounding song on this record. Very, very bare bones. That doesn't mean we don't get some beautiful high vocals coming in and out there, but I'm not really a huge fan of where this song goes. I just don't feel like it really goes anywhere because there's very little reverb or echo. It's very sort of stark, probably a live take. I'm not entirely sure on this one. What's to bow for, spilling your heart on the floor, wasting yours and my precious time? Peace of mind for peace of mind. After the curtain falls, mind rings empty on the paper church walls. The little quiet that I know, become a storm. Sadly, what I said and what I've done is nothing in comparison to what I need as a mend, to feel it's worth to do it again. I'm not entirely sure where the title Paramount comes into this, but what I'm getting from these lyrics is an idea of futility, a feeling of futility at trying to make your life, of trying to fight for your destiny, of trying to feel like everything you're doing is worth it when it sometimes in the present moment feels as though it's all futile, that you can't really fix your past, you can't atone for it fully, you can't change your bad habits, you can't really change other people's minds as much as you badly want them to. Mind rings empty on the paper church walls. Definitely, I think, a lyric alluding to that. And feeling so exhausted by the whole process at the end of it. Thinking, I don't want to do this anymore. I need such healing to be able to continue to try and heal the rest of the world, to continue to try and heal all the other parts of me. I need to be healed first, and I'm so exhausted by it. And I can definitely relate to that heavily. The penultimate track, Swallow, is another highlight for me on this record. And I think this is sort of like a brand new song to us. I don't think we've heard any versions of it before. And it definitely feels, I mean, we get dynamic back, which I think is so important. It's not so muted and one note. We have real highs and lows in terms of decibel on this song, which is really important in making things not feel so sleepy. We've got this really strong synth beat. It's a real statement track. There's still some airiness in parts, which I said like creates that interesting dynamic of back and forth. And it just really kind of brings back things back to life a little bit on this playlist for me. It has an amazing chorus. One of my favorite choruses. I think I can walk by myself, but you're right behind. The hairs on my back on end, like you're in my mind. That's my name on the box, and I know there's a price on my head if I don't. Gotta bury the thought and swallow once more. In the chorus, a life of disbelief does not make us dance. I built a society with beautiful prospects. A life of disbelief does not make us dance. In the verses, I'm getting, again, an idea of getting over someone, gotta bury the thought, stop thinking about you. You're always right behind me, and I'm tired of being casted in your shadow. In the chorus, I'm getting the idea, mantra-like description of going forward with purpose in society. So you need to know what it is and that you want to see in the world so that you can emulate that and make for a better world for it. And it's good to have an open mind because a life of disbelief does not make us dance. It's better to be open to things because then you're more in tune with the rhythm of life. That's how I'm interpreting this. And so finally, we have Dive. I'm a little torn on this one. I think this is a song that I'm going to need a little bit more time with because I keep going back and forth on my thoughts on it. At first, I really actually kind of did enjoy it. And then in a couple later listens, it didn't actually stand out to me as much as I thought. And I kind of was like, maybe this will grow on me. This was released exclusively digitally as an addition to the Blue album. It was sort of like a bonus track. I'd never heard it, obviously, because I hadn't followed her career back then. Sonically, this themes into Blue totally. I mean, we've got the hunting for pearls, diving into depths unknown, mouthful of water, salty head to toe. I think Tap Your Glass, there's a lot of lyrical similarities there. We definitely have so much lyrically tying into that theme. But sonically, I think it's actually a little bit more reminiscent of her album Kin because of the very industrial electronica, the unrecognizable vocal distortions, There's definitely a militant backing beat to this track. And on Kin, we sort of have a lot of that sort of uncanny pairing of, ethereal, muted choral vocals with this very propulsive, electro-industrial beat. And towards the end of the song, as the vocals become a little bit more processed and distorted, we get some very odd vocal distortions, some pitch shifting, some vocal slowing. It sounds very uncanny and eerie in parts, which I think really serves the idea of sinking lower into the abyss. Because it starts to really sound like you're underwater. It sounds like you're hearing her vocals from underwater. And also, sonically, it's really a simple repeating melody line. This whole song is built upon that, like, 1, 4, or 5 note cascading melody line. And she really makes it work. You don't really feel the repetition of it because the song works around it in so many different ways, and it transitions from different stages of that element. So I think that this song is one that I just need more time with, and I think it will really stand out to me. But some of these songs start to sound a little similar to others because they're also muted and sort of, I don't want to say monotone, but they're very demo quality, so there's not a lot popping out at you. And so, not that this song feels so demo-like, but I just feel like it could still have a little bit more potential with some of the fleshing out of the production. But I do think that overall, this is a really interesting look into the world of Jonna Lee and her mysterious oeuvre of work. It's a great celebration of 10 years, because it's been 10 years since she first started making music and releasing it as iamamiwhoami. She's created so much magic and mystery in her body of work in the last 10 years, and this is a great celebration of all of that. It doesn't really answer any of the questions we originally had about this project or some of the ideas behind it, but that's not the point. It's a great way to be reflective and call back and celebrate those earlier songs and build upon all of the different sort of sonic styles that she has embraced throughout her career, because it's definitely gone through a lot of transitional phases, depending on how she's used her vocals in the past, how clear her vocals have been, the types of beats and production, the catchiness level, all of these things, the accessibility they've translated, they've mutated and changed throughout. But this album, if anything, just reminds us that there is still very much an anchoring in those early days of very experimental indie electronic music that was kind of indiscernible in parts and haunting and cerebral. And as pop and bombastic as her music might have gotten in later years, she still is at the root, still kind of within that space of the original I Am Am I project. And that's what I love about this playlist, and that it's bringing the Jonna Lee projects and the I Am Am I projects together, synthesizing them into a body of work that really makes the whole thing feel cohesive. Her whole oeuvre of work feel cohesive. It helps tie it all together. So I'll be interested to see what the next chapter will bring. I will say, I think Jonna has worked really hard for the last 3-4 years, and I would imagine she could really be able to take a bit more of a break. I'm sure she had intended to be taking a longer break between her next studio album after Remember the Future. But, with the pandemic, we all found ourselves with a lot more time and being in quarantine. And so she wanted to soundtrack our isolation, give us something to, process all of these crazy emotions we've been dealing with lately. And it was a great gift to us. I wish more artists would have done something like this. Although I don't blame artists for being listless and not as productive during these times. It's been tough on both sides of the spectrum. So I'm grateful that she made this, and there's definitely some really interesting new gems we got, like Down by the River, Down by the Lake, and Swallow, and I love the new version of You, and Long and John. So I'm definitely going to be listening to a bunch of these songs, and I think a bunch of them will grow on me. As always, her songs tend to do. They're not usually very instantly accessible. So I hope you enjoyed this review. Let me know your thoughts on a lot of the different info about these tracks. There's some juicy info. I would really love to know about some of the titles and stuff. And I will link all of my Jonna Lee AIM reviews in the description, so you can check those out if you're new. Thank you all so much for watching. Please give this a like if you enjoyed. I will see you all in my next video. Peace, love, and light. Bye.